It is time for us to get ourselves together, stop depending on someone else to do for you what they don't want to do, because they can't teach your child African culture because they can't even teach the child the subject that they went to school to learn. So how they going to teach you something that even they don't even know who they are? So how you going to teach me who I am if you don't know who you are?
Man,
it's up to us, family.
Our expectations are way too low. I have a personal story where a sister friend of mine who we hadn't seen each other in a while because she moved away. She moved away when she was pregnant. She had a baby, Heru, and she came to see me 4 months later to visit back in Atlanta. And we're sitting on the couch and we're talking and we're catching up and we're laughing. And she says, hold on for 1 second. Heru has to go to the bathroom. And I'm looking at her like, what? You have to go to the bathroom? She's like, yeah, hold on 1 second. I'm looking, for real? You have to go to the bathroom? I'm like, he's going to the bathroom in 4 months. So she's like, yeah, I'll tell you in a minute. Let me just get him to the bathroom before he pees on himself. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
You are now part of a social experiment.
See now where my limit is. Only got no It's like they just wanna see you struggle. I swear they don't wanna see you shine.
They don't.
It's like they just want you to bleed and they want you to fall. They don't want you to be where the streets are paved with gold.
Welcome to MasterMine, the home of Black excellence and self-mastery. Here's your host, Mr. G.
welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us today on the journey towards self-mastery. Welcome to our MasterMine University monthly segment that challenges the Black mind to think, develop, and grow. Let's start thinking. It has been a wild 3 years since the start of the pandemic as it relates to education. A lot has changed and a lot has remained the same. As parents, we need to be more in the forefront of our children's education. Today, we are here with two juggernauts in the world of education that will help break down some of the changes and some of the consistencies as it relates to Black children, Black parents, and Black educators. Today, we have Queen Taese, who has over 20 years of experience as a homeschooling mother and has her own homeschooling platform called Liberated Minds. She also provides virtual education through her homeschool university. We also have the great Dr. Kaba Kamene. You might recognize him from the Hidden Colors series and being at the forefront of a lot of work in the Black community. He's a master teacher and has taught all grade levels, including college. He's an activist and also a best-selling author. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And thank you for joining us, Dr. Kaba and Queen Taese. Pleasure to have you. I've been so excited for this.
Yes, I'm equally as excited to be here. I really appreciate the invitation. Definitely a very powerful topic right now, much needed conversation. You know, we're looking for solutions. So I trust that, you know, being here this evening, we will add on to that list of solutions that we can keep activating.
Absolutely. Greetings, Dr. Kaba.
Hotep in peace to my brother Pascal and to the family that's come on. My sister Queen Taese, it's always a pleasure to see you and to be a part of the work that we're doing. And I think that this is a phenomenal time to be alive doing this work. I just think it's important. I do realize that, you know, we got difficult things we're going through, but there's another level that I think we should just focus on. And that's what I think that this conversation really is going to highlight. And that is that we are moving ahead. Great things are happening in the communities, particularly where I visit around the country, just coming back from Dallas, on my way to Chicago next week with the great brother, Marcus Klein, who has the Freedom Home Academy in Chicago and opening up other schools around. There's great things happening, family. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Indeed, indeed. Before we get started, I want, you know, people to kind of get an introduction to you guys and your work and everything. So we'll start with ladies first. So Queen Taese, would you mind sharing with us what brought you to the world of education? How would you define education? And, you know, what brought you to homeschooling?
Yes. Well, wow. That's a whole lot rolled up in one. I mean, you know, for me, I feel like education was always a huge part of my life, but also I was always an educator. Even when I was a child myself, I was always gathering up the little children that were younger than me and, you know, trying to play school and, you know, bringing other people in the community together to do positive things, whether it was jump rope, whether it was just fellowshipping, building, whatever it might be. So I see that kind of was always in my nature. In terms of African-centered education, I feel as if, that was something that was always within me spiritually. It was in my soul, to be connected to self, to understand, like you said, the self-mastery, to really go deeper into my culture, although I wasn't in an environment that would allow me to go as deep as I wanted. However, the environment I was in was an environment of family. And so that really nurtured who I am today. I love family. I feel like, when people say, my friend, I always say, no, that's my brother, that's my sister. If that's how we roll, that's how we function, that we work together as a collective for the common goals that we need for the community. So as far as education, the most powerful definition to me is it has to be functional. It has to be operational. It has to be the sustenance of our communities, of our families, of our culture, of our spirituality. If that's not the foundation of the education that we're receiving to empower us, then it's not education. It's not allowing us to thrive and live in our true divine purpose. When we all come here, there's a reason why we arrive, right? It's one continuous circle, like Nana Marimba says, it is, making sure that we are not allowing the circle to be unbroken. We're maintaining that. So that was, really huge for me always, even when I look back. But in terms of homeschooling, homeschooling is just an extension of our true African nature and culture. We are able to just really be in the driver's seat of our children's education and provide a framework and experiences that are enriching, that are cultivating, that are uplifting to the spirit and the soul, that really create a love of learning. And I think that whole piece gets lost in it somewhere, like that love of learning and the ability to go to the highest heights, even beyond our imagination, right? There's no one dictating that for us. We are creating our own reality. And I felt like the school system was not going to do that for my children, and I have 7 children. And it's like, even starting from the beginning, I always had that urge to make sure that they were able to receive what was their divine gift, to have. And so I just said, hey, let me try it. It wasn't something that was very popular. I've been homeschooling almost 30 years. So back then it was kind of the taboo thing, and now it's becoming a lot more acceptable. But sometimes we just have to take the leap, y'all, with what we feel internally and inside, and know that all will be provided along the way.
Appreciate that, Queen Taese.
Yes.
Dr. Kaba, would you mind telling us why you got started in education? And if you could, I know Queen Taese defined education for us. If you could give us what you think the purpose of education is as it relates to Black children.
When it comes to where I was coming from, I think that one of the greatest inspirations in my life as it relates to getting into education was my teacher, Professor John Henrik Clark, who brought me through a process of understanding. And so his definition of education was education to empower the learner. It has to bring power. It has to empower you. And so in my experiences in the educational system, because I purposely went into the educational system and developed myself in it in order to understand. So I often call myself the spook who sat by the classroom door, because I wanted to study the system. I wanted to see how it worked and our place in it. And I realized that there are many folk that don't have the luxury to totally be able to homeschool their children. Financially, they have to go out to work. They have to do a lot of different things to make the rent, food on the table, and all the other things that goes into life. But that doesn't stop homeschooling, because I homeschool my children, but they still went to school. But I homeschool my children. And so what Queen Taese is doing in her Homeschooling Liberated Minds program is showing, if you have the opportunity to be able to homeschool your child, that's phenomenal. But if by chance you don't, you still can tap into what she's offering as a program to know how to educate your children. From the moment my wife and our children were born, we became their teacher, period. I used to tell my children, I'm sending you to school to learn how to socialize, to get along with other human beings, to learn interactions. But I'm your teacher. I gave them work to do. From before they were in school, they had work to do. They had study to do. We can do this. It's out here. It's possible. And it becomes important that we don't get bogged down with the superficiality of Western civilization because they're having problems educating their children.
Mm.
And there are so many different signs that we're looking at. And what I attempt to do is to expose what's actually going on, because as peoples of African descent, it is important for us to be able to interpret the world as it is. And what's happening in Florida is not discussed, but there are many students of European descent and Asian descent that are fighting back against what's going on in Florida. They are saying we have a right to study The Bluest Eye, if we want to, by Toni Morrison. It's our choice to be able to read that book. Whether we read it or not is a whole nother choice, but you don't have a right to take those books off the shelf. There's a lot of kickback when you go into certain schools that are predominantly of European descent. They have a lot of problems in their school. We think they got it going on, but they don't. The children are revolting against the nonsense of education. To go back to what Queen Taese said as it relates to the Moorish proverb that says, if what you learned you cannot use, you wasted your time learning it. Everything that you do should be operational. It should be something that you can do something with, not just something that you know. And so once we get to that understanding, and once we understand that, quite frankly, family, it's up to us now. Okay, don't be looking outside for anything, because like Dr. Clark said, you ain't got no friends. And our battle that we fought over 60 years that I can remember being a part of, we invited other groups to be a part, but they didn't become part of what we were doing. We invited the Asian community to be part of what we were doing. We told them. We were the ones that made it so they call themselves Asian American, because before the African American movement of the 60s, Asian people were considered to be Orientals. And we told them, don't let them call you Orientals. Asian is what they should call you. So we spoke to all these communities, and now we are in the middle of what is called AAPI, Asian American Pacific Island Month. Everybody's celebrating Indigenous Month. Everybody's celebrating Hispanic Month. But it started with Negro Week with Carter G. Woodson. It's just the way it is. Celebrate yourself. And they have every right to celebrate themselves. But when we had that civil rights movement, y'all weren't on lines with us. I'm not saying everybody wasn't, but I'm saying as groups, they weren't. And we told them, look, they come after us at night because they're going to come after you tomorrow morning. So you better get ready.
Appreciate that, Dr. Kaba. I think with education, I think it's important to know our roles and responsibilities. I think it makes things very clear. So I wanted to ask, we'll start with Queen Taese. I know you're good with the parenting dynamic. So as it relates to education, what do you think is the role of the parent and what is the role of the child? And then Dr. Kaba, I'll ask you something different.
Yes. Well, I feel like it's so much more than what we know, right? I feel like, children and their parents, it's a reciprocal relationship. A lot of times we think about as parents, we are the only ones supposed to be educating the children or guiding the children, and they're supposed to just follow everything we say. But what I want to dispel around that is that our children also come to educate us as well. I feel like it's a spiritual pact, right? That they've come here to show us certain things and reveal certain things about ourselves, to continue to grow, because we were once children that were growing, and we're still growing infinitely for our whole lifetime and beyond, right? And so I feel like when we recognize that, we honor the children in a different way, right? We recognize that they are a gift to us and we are a gift to them. And so the cultural transmission of who we are as a people, of knowledge of self, of the morals, the values, the traditions that are valuable to us, that are rooted in our culture, right? Which I feel like is the number one thing that's being eroded, in this mainstream society. It's being eroded in our culture, right? However, they are utilizing it for capitalism in their culture, right? Our Ma'at principles and all the Ubuntu and everything we're talking about. In fact, one of the most popular computer systems is Ubuntu now. And I'm just like, wow, that's interesting. So when we go and we look at our culture, as they're telling us not to practice it, as they're telling us how evil it is, as they're telling us, all of the reasons why we should subscribe over here, they are at the same time usurping that in working to utilize it for their power. So I feel as parents, we have to make sure that we are being very attentive to our children, right? And a lot of times with so much going on, it can be very challenging, doing that check-in with them, making sure we're spending quality time when we can. And quality time doesn't have to be a lot of time, because sometimes parents say, well, I don't have any time to give. It doesn't have to be a lot of time, but time where that is just one-on-one time, that where you're looking in each other's eyes, you're having a real conversation, you're checking in with their social and emotional wellness and what's going on in their heart, mind, body, soul, spirit, at every given moment. Also, just being able to guide them. When I say being in the driver's seat of our children's education, it doesn't mean that they're not also in the driver's seat in, one shape, form, or fashion. At the same time, it's looking at who they are internally. What are their gifts? What are their talents? What is it that they love offering to the world that maybe they're not able to see, but we can see when we look, through that first eye and say, wow, I noticed that they really love, the science and the technology. I noticed that they're really into healing people and making sure everyone is well, or whatever those gifts are. It's our job to notice them, but also to nurture them, and to give them the opportunities to be able to do that, but also the habits, the regimens, the daily regimens that are so important. A lot of times I know we have goals, and we just have goals, but we never set what is the daily regimen to reach that goal. So that's one of the greatest things that we can, establish for them, that they can't necessarily, most of the time they can't establish that for themselves when they're younger. We have to set those, those boundaries. We have to set that foundation of, how that works, the culture of excellence. It comes from, once you know who you are, your divine purpose, you're developing character, which a lot of times we forget. A lot of times that people want to focus on academics. However, don't let the academics turn into academia, where you're forgetting, the other aspects of what's important. And in African culture, the first thing that was important was our character. Like that was our marketing, right? We didn't have the marketing billboards, and the marketing was that you came from this family that had great character, that was very, reciprocal and worked collectively with the community. It came from that family name. And so if we can go forward to that, Sankofa, and bring that forward to where we are right now and reestablish what we know to be ours and true, then, our children will have a lot more opportunities to be connected to that family. I feel like everything right now is about disconnection with the origins, disconnection with anything that's tangible, right? Instead of a book, they want you on Kindle, right? Instead of everything is virtual. Instead of playing sports, they want you to put on the glasses so you can, simulate. Everything is simulation. But if we can go back to that real time, that hardwired love and connection with our children, that will make a huge difference.
And what about the children themselves? Like, what is their role and responsibility?
Well, their role and responsibility is to, number one, be able to, like you said, self-mastery, learn knowledge of self, be obedient in the aspect of understanding that they come from a rich lineage, but they also there's an honorability that they have to maintain in knowing that connection to that lineage, those who came before them that set a pathway and opened up opportunities and allowed them to be here today to do what they're doing. And that we understand that I am because we are. They're not just the individual as we're taught. You hear the do you, just do you. And I can't stand that saying, just do you. Because it's like, there's no you, there's no self-made anybody, that we're all connected. So their role and responsibility is to, follow the patterns that are set for them, follow the, and be open to asking questions. Like some people don't like children to ask questions. I'm okay with that. As long as it's not disrespectful, I want them to really be able to understand why I do what I do. And when we make changes, right, I can say, you know what, we don't do that anymore because I found this out. I learned this, so they can see my evolution. So their job is to continue to evolve, to continue to learn more, to grow more, and the love of learning, right, exploration, even outside of the classroom, even those who are in public school, because I don't like to segment. Sometimes it's like, you got the private school people, the public school people, it's back to the segmentation again, right? But as a people, as African people, we are definitely facing the same things no matter where we are in the world throughout the diaspora. So when we understand that, it's our job to make sure that they are staying connected with their community, that they are building these relationships that they build as children, in their social environments are going to be those people they're calling on later on, to be as the business partners or, referring so-and-so to so-and-so. This is my vision that, we can, and I know and everyone is not in the same scenario to have the same exact outcome, but I feel it's our role to make sure that we, provide that open space for them to be guided along the way so they can follow.
Appreciate that, Queen Taese. That was
Yes.
very, very, very informative. We do know that it takes a village. So Dr. Kaba, would you mind telling us what you think the role of the educator is? And also, I know, you've been a part of school administration, you've been a part of building schools. So on top of the educator, what is the role of the school itself as it relates to what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, and to connect with what Sister Queen Taese is saying, I've always looked at from my experiences, and you can look at it as the adult, the educator, because all adult males in the community is Baba or is a teacher. All adult females is Mama, and they are teachers. Hmm. And so again, with this separation of teacher and parent, and while there is a certain separation as it relates to a social, it's one and the same. I was my children in the classroom. I was their Baba. I saw myself as their father, not their biological father, but I saw myself as being responsible for their development. So I look at it, I call it Openex. Openex, opportunities for learning, environment for growth, and experiences in the individual and social setting. So in so doing, the adult the adults, the teachers, the parents, their job is to provide the opportunities, the environments, and the experiences. The student's responsibility is to learn, to grow, and to learn how to act within individual and group settings, social settings. Mm-hmm. So in my one sentence alone, I'm showing the relationship between the teacher and the student, the parent and the students. It is our job to give them the opportunities for learning, the growth. Going back to something Queen Taese was saying about in the village where you see a child is just a whiz in mathematics. There's something about numbers that they are just really good at. You see another one that is always like, in terms of what she was describing, the healer. She was the one that always wanted to make sure everybody was feeling all right. Okay, that's a future doctor, and there was someone else that was very athletically inclined. See, what I'm getting at is what's called multiple intelligences. That in the village, in the community, we notice that in our children, there are gifts that we're all given. We're all born with a gift that's already been predestined. In fact, we were brought into the world to fulfill that divine gift, period. That was our job. Just to stick a pin there for a moment and to help us understand how dynamic and how spiritual this is. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about an energy force. Spiritual. Every woman is born with every egg that she will ever get fertilized or dispelled through the system of her monthly cycle. They're born with them. Every man is born with every spermatozoon that he will ever have in his life. It just needs to be developed. But if that's true, if that is scientifically accurate, which I believe it is, it means that when your grandmother was born, she was born with the egg of your mother. If that's true, when your grandmother was born, your mother was born, but your mother also had your egg. So when your grandmother was born, she had the egg of every human being that would ever come through the cycle of fertilization. The same thing with the with the man with the spermatozoon, which is the singular term for spermatozoa. But it also means that from the very beginning of the development of the mammalian stage, we were born. And all it took was the development of time to bring us where we are today in June of 2023. We have always been around. And when we develop a system in our communities, it is our job, from what I've studied, ancient and modern, in the communities of Africa and the African communities around the world, every adult population lives to make their children better than them, to improve upon their greatness, not to be equal to it, but to take it to the next level. That is our responsibility, and to instill in the children that it is their responsibility, that when they come of age, their responsibility is to take the greatness that they have been given from us to their children, to make their children greater than them. That's what built the pyramids. That's what brought the first human family, the Twa Mbuti people of Central Southern Africa, into the development of civilizations that we now celebrate. And so our responsibility is to make it better for the children and to give them everything that they need, every opportunity to learn, every environment to grow, because that's really what the great challenge is. Because when I was working in the Bronx, I remember I took a group of parents to Baltimore, Maryland, to meet another parent group that was developing a very special program that was called the Parent Academy. And we rented buses, Black-owned buses, and we went to Baltimore. And I sat next to a parent, and she told me this was the first time. I had to understand this dynamic. She told me this was the first time she was ever out of the Bronx. And so there are parents that have not been given opportunities. There are some of us as humans, but I'm talking about us as an African people, who have not had opportunities to see how other people live around the world. And this was one of the greatest experiences in our brother Malcolm X, just celebrated his 98th birthday. This was one of his greatest experiences when he went around the world and he saw the world from a different perspective. He saw Black folk living under certain conditions that were mastery, where they had mastered the land, they had mastered their experiences, and they had been able to develop. Up until then, Malcolm said his experiences was very local as it related to the United States of America. Opportunities. We have to give our children opportunities. As a gym teacher, okay, as a gym teacher, we got to give our children more than just calisthenics and then throw a basketball out to them. We have to teach them other sports. We have to give them other experiences in individual sports, which could be tennis, or golf, or it could be group, which is basketball. I'm not saying don't teach basketball, but it appears that to keep the children quiet, we just throw a basketball out. My background in college was gymnastics. That's what I was recruited for, gymnastics and fencing. I taught the children gymnastics. They had never been exposed to this before. I took them to different types of children's Olympics around the Bronx to have them experience running, track and field and shot put and all these other kinds of. We have to give our children experiences that they don't normally have. And while I respect basketball, phenomenal stars, sports is more than just basketball. And we've got to expose our children to sports, to art. We have to take them to museums. Our brother Tariq Nasheed just opened up the Hidden History Museum in Los Angeles. We should have classes going in there. They should have class trips going there. And then if we got the money, we ought to be able to travel to Los Angeles in order to participate there. We need opportunities for learning, environment for growth, and experiences in the individual and social setting.
Well said. Well said. All right. So right now, I think a lot of us are familiar with the impacts of the pandemic as it relates to education, specifically for Black children. Math scores have gone down, reading scores have gone down. I think they said right now the literacy rate for Black children in the fourth grade is about 16% nationwide. And, so, you know, a lot of this for some people is not surprising. For others, it is. And I know you mentioned, Dr. Kaba, that, you know, if you have a good understanding of the history, you'll be able to predict the future. So with that said, historically, after desegregation, was there ever a time where Black children were educated in the proper manner? And if there never was, should we ever expect it?
Dr. Molefi Asante wrote a book about the African American. It's a textbook on the African American experience. In the year let's look at Emancipation Proclamation 1863, but let's look at Juneteenth as one of the fundamentals. So let's look at 1865 at the end of the so-called Civil War. By 1870, 14% of the newly freed Africans were literate. By the year 1900, 46% of the African American community was literate. Now, you just gave some numbers. When we taught ourselves, the Divine Nine, so to speak, okay, I'm going to speak on a lot of different concepts because we have to understand how great we are. But there's something else I'd like to tell you. In 1998, there is a test that they take called the TIMSS test. It deals with math and science, and it's an international test that they give, just to show you where we are and why we got to do this ourselves. When they took this test in 1998, there were only 13 countries in the world that did worse than the United States students. I'm talking about European American students. Listen, family, this system ain't happening. Western education is very backwards. It's devolutionary. It is devolving. So that it's important for us to understand this problem is not just ours. And I do know that we focus on us and we have a right to focus on us. But let me tell you something. Okay, here's another story. I did a presentation in Scarsdale, New York, which is a rather wealthy community. They invited me out to do a presentation on education and the human brain. And at the end of my presentation, a gentleman came up to me of European descent. And he was a psychiatrist, an educational psychiatrist. And he told me, he said, you know, it's interesting what you said because a lot of people in this room didn't like what you said. But, you know, when I'll tell you this, if you tell people I told you this, I'll deny it. But I'm going to tell you something. When these affluent children are ready to go to college, their parents bring them to me for classification. I charge $3,000 for this evaluation, half up front, the first visit, and half the second visit. When they come to me, I classify them as being learning disabled, which gives them time and a half on the test in special ed. For those that know special ed, when you have been classified as special ed, you get you get time and a half on the test. So if a test is, let's say, 3 hours, you know, like the College Board tests and SATs and things like that. If they're 3 hours, you get 4.5 hours. He said, and when I classify them as special ed, they get that hour and a half, or they get time and a half on the test. After they take the test, if they actually are the ones that took the test, they then come back to me and I reclassify them as general education. Students of European descent are not that intelligent. And this is another thing that we have to get over. It is not a learning achievement gap. It's not a learning gap. It's not an achievement gap. It's an opportunity gap. I've been in schools where there are approximately 12 computers for 250 students, and 8 of them don't work. I've been in other schools where every child walks into the building with a laptop. It's not a learning. It's not an achievement gap. Our children are geniuses. We have to understand this. And this is why homeschooling, be it a full day, such as what Queen Taese and so many of the members of the Liberated Minds organization do, or if it is a parent like myself who has to work, who's teaching the children on the weekends or at home, bringing them to the museums or whatever it is, we have the opportunity to do this. And one more thing before I close this section out. There's a commercial on TV that a child throws a skateboard across the kitchen. And mother says, I told you, no skateboarding in the house. But on the skateboard is his report card. And all of a sudden, the mother picks the report card up and she said, wow, you're passing all your classes. I knew it was a good idea to send you to, and I know the particular learning center that they're talking about. I've worked there before. So I know what they're talking about, and I know what they do to educate children. It's a one-on-one relationship. But the point that I'm making is that this particular program meets the child 3 times a week for 2 hours. So if that child was failing with 35 hours in a regular school, but then started passing with just 6 hours of school, it's not how long you're in that classroom. It's what goes on in that classroom that's important. And that's what we have to do. And that's what Liberated Minds is doing. And that's what this great expo in July is going to present to the community once again, to let us know it is time for us to get ourselves together, stop depending on someone else to do for you what they don't want to do, because they can't teach your child African culture because they can't even teach the child the subject that they went to school to learn. Mm-hmm. So how are they going to teach you something that even they don't even know who they are? So how are you going to teach me who I am if you don't know who you are?
Man,
it's up to us, family. Mm-hmm. Period. That's the end. Yes. That's the end of the race. Let's cut the race and go right to the end zone. And let me tell you, the answer is we must do this ourselves.
Thank you for that. That's the perfect segue for Queen Taese.
Yeah, I gotta jump on that real quick.
and Queen Taese, could you add, please? I think the proof is in the pudding when we talk about doing it ourselves. Yes. Can you add some of the amazing work that your children have been able to do as a result of you doing it yourself?
Definitely. I mean, well, first of all, I want to dispel the myself, right? So it is a community. It's a village. It's just we get to choose who's in our village, right? Yes. We get to choose who we want up and close and personal with our children, and just being very strategic and, intentional. And so, Baba, I appreciate you sharing that, even in terms of the opportunities, because right now I actually have a program that I'm teaching. It's a training that solely deals with creating opportunity for our children. And it's called the Opportunity Accelerator. And what I love about it is I'm taking, some of the framework of the things that I have done to propel my children further into what they love through creating opportunities, and the children on the campus, just children and families. That's just what I love to do, period. I love to see us all winning. And so I want to say that just staying on that same frequency is Baba Kaba. I really want to say that there are so many opportunities all around us that we do not see. And this kind of couples with what your question is to Mr. G as well. What I was able to do through, intention, but also through the help of the community in different ways is I really looked at what I felt their interests were, like I said in the beginning, even when they were very small. But the other thing I think that we're taught in this culture, and we're the only people really who do it when you think about it, is we're taught to wait until our children are older. Like people will ask, what are your children, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I think that's the most bogus thing, because when you put a collard green seed in the ground, it's going to be a collard green. The DNA for that collard green to be nurtured is there, right? All the elements are there. It just needs to be watered. It just needs some sun. It just needs some care and tending to, right? And some strategic cultivation. And it's the same thing with our children, that there is no waiting until they grow up. If you go into a Chinese restaurant, you see children working in there at 5 and 6 years old, even if they're folding napkins, even if they're just taking the money out of your hands. You see them working very young, right? And it's not a working where they're overworking. It's an environmental thing. So they're within an experience that they now are a part of the success of that business, the success of that family, the success of that community. They are directly tied to what that looks like, right? So in addition to that, we focus too much on age. and not on stage, because all the age levels and requirements that they've given us are all wrong for African people, right? They tell you, well, when you get 2, you should be potty trained at 2 and 3. And then, then the children will start to learn to go to the bathroom. Well, our expectations are way too low. I have a personal story where a sister friend of mine who we hadn't seen each other in a while because she moved away. She moved away when she was pregnant. She had a baby, Heru, and she came to see me 4 months later to visit back in Atlanta. And we're sitting on the couch and we're talking and we're catching up and we're laughing. And she says, hold on for 1 second. Heru has to go to the bathroom. And I'm looking at her like, what? You have to go to the bathroom? She's like, yeah, hold on 1 second. I'm looking, for real? You have to go to the bathroom? I'm like, he's going to the bathroom in 4 months. So she's like, yeah, I'll tell you in a minute. Let me just get him to the bathroom before he pees on himself. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I follow her, of course. And I'm like, let me see what she's talking about. So I'm peeking around the corner. I'm standing there. She takes his diaper off. She puts him on the toilet and he pees in the toilet. Now, mind you, I'm like, wait, I thought I had high expectations here, but I was blown away. And so we come back, we sit on the couch. I was like, what was that? Like, what made you want to potty train him at 4 months? And she's like, well, this whole thing called elimination communication, where, you can see the signs that they give you that they have to go to the bathroom. Just like, that just sounds so African. Like, where did you? She's like, well, I learned it from some Yorugus, more European based. And so, we had the conversation, and after we had a great time, she left. And I got on that computer. I was on there for hours. I was like, I know this is African based. This is something, elimination communication. I know this comes from us. So I went down the rabbit hole, and there it was. I started finding all throughout Africa, all throughout the diaspora and indigenous people around the world, that we didn't potty train our children at 2 and 3 years old. They were going to the bathroom from birth, right? And there was a connection that we had to recognize those signals. Like, a lot of times we're so disconnected in this culture because there's so much going on and we put so much priority outside of our children. But when we notice their little nuances, right? I know for my little one, when he had to move his bowels and go to the bathroom at 2, he would go stand in the corner. And that was his thing. And I'm like, oh, wait, hurry up, let's get to the bathroom, right? So everybody, all our children have messages and signals that they tell us when they're not feeling well, when they're uncomfortable, whenever, whatever it is that is on their mind, their hearts, their bodies, their spirits. We just have to be tuned in. We have to be tuned in. So what that taught me, because as I was going down the rabbit hole, I realized, have I ever seen any photos on the continent? Have I ever experienced anything like that, where I saw a baby wearing a diaper, even when the mothers are wearing the babies on their back? No. And so, what they would do is just lay the babies on their legs and signal the baby to pee, and the baby would pee. And this is from birth. So Nana Amos Wilson talks a lot about that, how our children are much more developed from birth. We sit up, we lift our heads up. A lot of our babies first, second day, and we're looking around. Right? Where some of their babies, their eyes are not even open yet for a week or two, right? So there's so much we should know about our divine greatness. And when we don't have high expectations, we dumb our children down, right? But the high expectations have to be also met with the support to meet those high expectations. Because I've seen that too. I've seen parents who set high expectations, and yet they don't give their children the support and the guidance of how to reach them. So it turns into frustration. Frustration for the children, frustration for the parents, and it's an all-out fail. So personally, some of the things that I have done, I have looked at all of my children's talents and their gifts. It's interesting you say that, because today my son he's 26 now, but today he went to a reunion he's a pilot now, right? He's a professional pilot, commercial pilot, but he went to a reunion for one of our great elders, Baba Julius Alexander, who started one of the first Black aviation schools for children, right? And he's based in Atlanta. And so it's an all Black aviation school. And, they teach children as young as 9 years old for a subsidized fee, sometimes even scholarships. And my son, I noticed around 6 or 7 that he really was into the science and the math, and he would take things apart and put it back together, would always be missing a few screws. I'm like, wait, what about these screws? It's like, we don't need those. It's like, wait a minute. But I would allow him to do certain things, it's like, okay, this, let him explore. I began to, like, when his birthdays came, okay, maybe we should do a science party or just something that was connected to what he loved. And then as he got older, I always look for different science books and just anything that would nurture the little model cars that you put together, because those things are they're developing discipline, they're developing focus, the creativity. There's a lot that goes into putting together those model cars or puzzles or things like that are developing your brain in a certain way to be very creative, also logical. So you're developing really both sides of the brain at the same time, put it that way. So with that being said, as he got older, one of the things that I encourage you all to do that we do work within the Opportunity Accelerator program is to look for outlets where your children can be celebrated. Like all of our children they have so much greatness and genius, like Baba Kaba said earlier, within them. But we have to broadcast that genius, right? People love to hear powerful stories about what children are doing, what they're interested in, what they love. So we have to broadcast it. Don't worry about thinking it's bragging, but we want to be excited, and they need to hear that we're excited about them and what they're doing. So if your children are interested in, I don't know, if they're interested in dance, if they're interested in cooking, right? Whatever it might be, you're nurturing that. They have many opportunities we can create. We can create opportunities from internships. So he also had an internship that I created. And then guess what? After me creating an internship for him, he began to create internships for himself. And he would do the research because the children are just mimicking what we're doing. So as I started to create experiences, he said, hey, when he would talk to people, he said, oh, wow, well, is there anything I could learn here? Is there any way that I can, so they're just watching what we're doing. In addition to that, putting them in different environments. Sometimes it means that they'll be in environments with older people. Sometimes there were workshops for adults. And I'm like, hey, we're rolling up in here. Let's just see what they got. Let's sit, let's listen, let's connect, let's network, and he was at that time, maybe 13. I think he started studying aviation at 11. And by 16, he was a licensed pilot, right? 16, he was a licensed pilot. Now he's a commercial pilot, but he was a licensed pilot then, and continued to, further his studies, continue to look for different programs, different scholarships. And this you don't have to homeschool to do, right? And I want to dispel that too a little bit going further, but you don't have to homeschool to do it. I would go online. We as parents have to do our work and due diligence and research. I would find other young Black men and women who were in aviation. I would call them up. I would email them, hey, my son wants to do a report on you, and he's like, why do I do a report on them? Because I said so. They're not going to understand everything, just so he would interview them. And then with the interview, he would write a whole research paper, with the different interviews. And then he would send them a copy of what he put together. That would be one of his assignments, right? So there's so much you can do. I've done it with all of my children. My daughter was a vegan vegetarian chef from age 12. And college can be received through these internships. Hear me. Like she was able to study. We don't always notice. I want to bring that up. We don't always notice all their gifts. She always cooked with me in the kitchen. I knew she liked cooking, but I didn't know she loved it, right? And so that just kind of came about when, I would just say, hey, she's always in the kitchen. She loves cooking with me. And one of the parents says, hey, I noticed that your daughter, she really enjoys cooking. And there's a jerk contest, right? Where you cook with jerk seasoning coming up. And I don't know if that's something she might want to, be participating in. So I said, I don't know. And she looked and she's like, yeah, I would love that. And so mind you, I did talk, and this is where we have to kind of break the barriers, because some people they don't feel comfortable, right? Even with my son's internship, he had an internship at a car mechanic shop first, right? Before going to aviation school. They were so scared to let him in. It was a Black-owned car mechanic shop, all the liabilities. They started thinking about all of that. But I said, hey, just give him a chance. And he had one day there. And they were like, this young man is so brilliant. He's so focused. And by a weekend, he was doing all the oil changes. 3 weeks in that summer, he was helping to rebuild engines. And then by the time he got to aviation, he realized, hey, the engine in the smaller planes is the same engine in the car, right? He started to make the comparisons and the similarities. And so come back over here with my daughter, the internships are, they're priceless because they learn sometimes what college doesn't even teach you. Right, you pay $80,000, $60,000, $40,000 to go to college, and you come out with a lot of book smart, but not the practical skills that you need to execute. So she was able to learn restaurant management. She was able to learn, first of all, let me say, she did the contest. Let me jump back to that. She did the contest. She took first place. Over 5,000 people participated in that festival. And there were over, I think, 150 restaurants and individuals that participated, Caribbean restaurants and individuals. And she took first place because what she did was outside of the box. She did jerk. She made her own jerk seasoning, and she did all vegan vegetarian dishes, which usually you think of jerk food, you think of fish or chicken or pork or beef, whatever it might be. So use the experiences that they have, right? What you do have in your hands is you have a community. You have those in the community where you can take them to visit some other Black businesses, whether they're interning or not. They don't just have to intern in the areas that they love. Sometimes they just need to intern to help another Black business, learn some skills, really be able to understand how to run a business, what it takes while they're giving back. So, and then of course, there's the things that they love. Now, I always sought out different opportunities for her, even before getting the internship at the restaurant. She was there for maybe a year, and then her own business took off and she started getting into more health and wellness. She wanted to do yoga. So, okay, let's try yoga. You can do that too. And then next thing you know, she has her own yoga classes she's doing. She's catering now. People are giving her contracts from the city. She's getting contracts for Six Flags concert series because everybody's becoming vegan, vegetarian, and they don't know how to feed their artists. They're trying to find somebody to cater. So she does that, and she starts doing congressmen and city events and community events. So there's so many things that we can do that are all around us that will help to, number one, which is really important. So many children I meet lack confidence. You see it in their face when you talk to them. They look down, it's just a low self-esteem. We need to make sure their confidence is on 150, not 100, right? Not arrogant, but super confident, right? Super, super confident about who they are. They have to have those experiences that remind them. If your children are having trouble in reading and literacy, have them write a book. Have them write a book. A book about something that they love. So now they can reconnect in a positive way to what it means, to read and to share that reading and writing out in the world. And then you don't have to wait for someone else to celebrate your child. You create the situations where they are celebrated. So a lot of times we wait, we want someone, no one's inviting them to speak at a conference. Well, then start your own. We're going to have a gathering this week, where we're going to be featuring, your son, your daughter. We're going to be featuring maybe your whole family. Maybe you got 5 or 6 children. Hey, this is the such and such family gathering, and we're going to be pouring some positivity in the community. Start with the people that your family, your friends, and then the community, whoever wants to come out and support. So they can begin to get the accolades and yes, keep going, because it does take a village, but we have to put them in the village that really cares about their success. So when we're homeschooling, homeschooling it's really about a mindset, because there's many people who homeschool that ain't doing nothing. They home and they're not doing nothing at all. I can tell you, I know some, right? And then there's those who are in public school who are doing everything. They are at every meeting. They're making sure all the homework is done. They have their children involved in activities, but it's really about a mindset of first defining, just like the schools do, what is it that you want your children to know? So even if your children are in public school, private school, wherever they are, right, whatever type of schooling or education, you want to define a curriculum for them as well. What do you want them to know from the beginning to the end of this school year, or from the beginning of this month to the end of this month, whatever increments you choose? And then what is the regimen that you're going to put in place to make sure that they're learning that along the way? So because we have to work with where we are, and we have to speak life to what it is that we want to see show up in our life. I have people call me a lot of times and say, hey, I want to homeschool. I think I'm ready. And then they give me 15 reasons why they can't. I'm like, well, are you really ready? That don't sound like it to me, So we have to begin to speak life into what we want, even when we're uncertain. We have to begin to put ourselves in positions of power and around people who want what we want, right? Who are going to nurture us like we're coming there to nurture them. So it becomes a collective village that is, socially acceptable for our children and our families, because I get that too. A lot of people say, what about the socialization? I'm like, what about it? I'm like, African people, we're the most social people on the planet. We don't have a problem with being social. The issue is, I don't want my children around everybody's child. I'm just being honest. I want to make sure that I am keeping my finger on the pulse. We're not going to catch everything as parents. We know that. But what environments do you have them around that is in alignment with where you want them to go and where they want to go? It's so much easier to take them where they want to go and their interest levels. And sometimes we got to dig through that, right? Some children will say, well, I just want to do technology and computers. That's just because they want to be on a computer all the time. Sometimes it doesn't mean that. You got to dig a little deeper. It might be the creativity. I mean, what are they doing on there? Are they drawing? Are they playing games? It doesn't mean they have to be a gamer because they love playing games on the computer. Because I hear that too. And I'm like, oh, what that looks like, what opportunities are in this direction, in this field, or some of the other characteristics of what it is that they love to do on the computer or out, or other activities that it is that they might like to do. So the exposure is important, letting them see different dynamics of what life is about. Like Baba Kaba said, like I've met people like that too, Baba, where they're like, I would come back from like some type of free festival or something in Manhattan. And they were like, well, where did you go? I'm like, oh, I heard about that. And I'm like, they happen every year. Like I've only lived here for 2 years, and they said, well, I don't know. I don't really go anywhere. And so we have to be willing to seek and find and not just wait for things to come to us. We are creating our reality. We have to create our reality or else we are going to exist in this other reality. So we have to choose which ones. I'm going to be quiet because, I'm getting a little fired.
Man, that was priceless information, Queen Taese. That was priceless information. These are things I think that a lot of times we don't even think about, because sometimes we think that the only education that exists is within the four walls of school. So when you talk about the internships and just the creativity in your child's education, and not going by, well, they should be doing this at 2, at 3, at 4, but just going by their natural abilities is, I think, amazing. And if we all go that route, our children will be doing so many amazing things like your kids are doing. So thank you for sharing that.
And I want to say, like, all of our children have that, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of our children have. Just because you feel like you haven't seen it, it's there. None of our African children are born without genius, right? That's in the DNA. So it's just about, activating that.
Thank you for sharing that. Before we get into questions, I had one last thing that I wanted you guys, and we'll start with Dr. Kaba, to just share your thoughts as far as education in the future. So I know, like, you were talking about Dr. Amos Wilson, Queen, and, he believes in educating our children for a future where they can compete and they'll be able to provide and do for themselves. So there is a lot changing right now within the future as it relates to technology and a lot of other things that kids are definitely not learning and getting in school. So just based on your observations and your thoughts, what do you think that our children need to know to be competitive and successful in the future? So we'll start with Dr. Kaba.
One thing I'd like to say as it relates to something that Queen Taese said, and it ties into your question about our brother, Amos Wilson. I had a chance to work with Dr. Wilson in the 90s before he joined the Ancestors. I used to meet with him. He used to teach in a college down the block from where I used to work, Hostas College. And we used to meet and we used to talk about, I was able to share with him the practice of education, and he was able to share with me the psychology of education. And so there are aspects of education that I use that go directly from his psychological perspectives. And there were things that he wrote in his book, Blueprint for Black Power, when it related to education, where that was some of the research, because he would ask me to do certain things in the classroom and get back to him about what the success or the needed to improve for success was. One of the things about melanated children, because this is what we're talking about right now. We're talking about melanin and about the original human being that was born. In his book, The Psychology of the Black Child, and also in his book, Awakening the Genius in Black Children, Blueprint for Black Power, all of his books. One of the things that he talks about in family, I recommend that we stop using the term humble. Humble is not a good thing. And I'm a teacher, so I got to give everybody a homework assignment. I want you to look that word up. I'm going to give you my version, my perspective of what it means. It means that when you put yourself down in order to place someone above you, that's what being humble means. And humility is the act of being humble. Family, own your greatness. It's not about that you are bragging or that you are saying things that put you in a light. Dr. Clark used to always say, he used to tell me all the time, he told all of us all the time, he said, I have never met a mind finer than mine, but I've had the honor of being in the presence of minds that were as fine as mine. Black folk, we have faced the devil and beat him down. We have gone through for the past, to just stay local, 400 years, things that only the best of the best could have survived. And yet still here we are. Brother Mr. G of MasterMine, Queen Taese, myself, and 51 other people are on this conversation. We have overcome obstacles that have, when you're making a sword, it's a combination of fire and banging the hammer. And as you're building the sword, you beat on the sword to make it sharp, but it's the combination of the fire and the force that creates the sharp sword that is not just a weapon, but is a tool. We have been in the fires of hell, being beat by the hammer of oppression, and it made us better for the experience. We are a mighty people who have risen by the will of our wills. And we just have to understand what this is all about. What we are in right now is not that they hate us, they fear us. Hate is only an emotion that comes from the fear in their heart of, like when Francis Cress Welsing talks about when they look at your melanation, they fear you. And they fear you. That's a psychotic problem with them because they really have no reason to fear us. I understand why they understand that their lack of pigmentation puts them in a position of extinction, but that's a whole nother story. But what I'm saying to us is own your greatness. And when you look at that child, and when you read Dr. Amos Wilson's book, when a child is very smart, don't say, oh, wow, he's so smart for his age. No, he's smart just for his age. When you hear of a child being able to potty train at 4 months, don't be surprised. When you see a child that is able to do things at the age of 9 or 10, don't be surprised. The question is, did you give them the opportunity? Did you provide the environment? And did you give them the experience? And we need to do apprenticeships. Apprenticeships is very important. For instance, when Queen Taese and her son was in the program for aviation, when her daughter worked with people who were chefs, that's apprenticeship. I came under the apprenticeship of Professor John Henry Clark, Dr. Yosef Ben-Yekinen, Asa Hilliard, Shashi McIntyre. I found people that were in my area that were the master teachers or the masters in their area, and I worked with them. I carried Dr. Clark's attaché case. I prepared the table when he was going to do a presentation. And as a young person, I learned how to do that. And so we got to find people that are good. When you find the gift in your child, find someone who's a master in that and see if you can create a relationship between them so that they can work under their guidance and tutelage. Very important, apprenticeship. The Dogon did it. The Kemites did it. It's something that is indigenous to us in our community. Be you a chef or you make shoes, you're a plumber, you're an electrician. But let me end with this. The future wealth of the planet is solar power. Where we derive our energy is going to determine the wealth of our planet and our people. Solar power is the future wealth of the planet. I've got a series of curricula on solar power, starting with Aten Tech in Kemet. Solar power is the future wealth. There will be no heir they'll be able to put at the end of your name. No millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire. There will be no way to measure your wealth when we once again master solar power, because that's how the pyramids were built, with the understanding of solar power. That's why our ancestors call themselves children of the sun. That's the future wealth of the planet. So if you're a janitor, get a job in a solar plant as a janitor. If you're an office worker, get a job in a solar plant. Study what solar power is. And just for now, if you want to go to Kindle, if you want to get a book for free on solar power, go to Kindle and Google a book titled Solar Power Demystified. Read it. Share it with the children.
Appreciate that, Dr. Kaba. So much information to draw from. Before we get into questions, Queen Taese, do you have any recommendations on some things our children should be looking towards as far as studying in the future so that they can be competitive?
Yes, absolutely. They should definitely study the sustainability aspects in terms of, some of the things that we have on our Homeschooling University, which deals with sustainable and product design. Number one, because, a lot of times as African people, we've always worked synergistically, with the planet, maintaining, using materials that maintain and respect the earth. So much is being destroyed, like right before our eyes. So really being able to understand the environment, and our connectedness to the environment and how we can utilize the environment, the natural environment, without all these false chemicals. Also agriculture, permaculture, those aspects of growing food and our connectedness to food. I know right now that is something that, a lot of the things that we have always done have now become like they're reselling them to us. We're packaging it and reselling it to us. So agriculture, growing our own food was something that we always did. And, we got away from it so much that a lot of times children don't even recognize what food in its original state looks like. So now, learning about, that aspect of doing for self, the respecting of the environment, also how we need to eat to live. What do we need to put in our bodies to maintain our health and our wellness? Because, in the schools, they don't teach you about that. If you're learning about academics, but your body is now functioning, right? How do we go into all these jobs and positions, yet we're not healthy? It doesn't serve us well, right? So we're looking at a lot of the elders you will see are in better physical shape than some of even our young children that are in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. Sometimes it's, the exercise, now there's less exercise happening with the devices, but sometimes it's also from the quality of foods and how can we control the quality of foods by being able to be in control of what we are eating to the best of our ability. So I definitely, recommend those few aspects, and something that my family is doing as well, getting more and more into that as in addition.
Appreciate that. Somebody in the comment section mentioned something about AI, and I think that's important as well.
Absolutely.
My wife was just telling me that like AI, one of the new things in AI is called ChatGPT. So people can look that up. That's really interesting.
Yes.
But one of the things that they look for in that is somebody to be able to prompt. So prompting is like being able to ask it the right questions to get the right answers. So she told me like they're paying prompters like starting at $200,000 upwards, just to be able to ask the right questions to something like ChatGPT. So I think it's important for us not to get behind on the technology. And,
Yes.
Even YouTube, I think if you don't know what ChatGPT is and some of the new AI, just YouTube it and find out, because the other kids know it, the other parents know it. And if we got to be competitive, we got to know the technology. So that's super important.
If I can add to that, I just want to say that the technology is extremely important, but it also has the capability of being the technology and not the technology, where we begin to use the technology more than we do our own brains, And so one of the things that I always pose to parents is that, the STEM, all the STEM fields and everything that they're promoting right now, are not more important now than they were then, right? We always have been using STEM. We've always been using technology, especially as African people, all kinds of technology, right? That we've been using to be able to develop, all of these civilizations and empires and everything that we see that we've brought into existence. But what we have to be very careful of, and I stress this, is that, when we are pushing our children towards the technology, which they do have to know certain aspects, and we do want them to be proficient, we also have to ask, what technology are we producing for the preservation of African people? Because what's going to happen is, I just see it, I foresee it, I don't know that it's going to happen, but in my mind, it has already happened, is that so many children are being pushed in that area without any understanding of what they're going to be doing in that area. There's no focus. And everybody's just speaking about technology, making sure they know how to work the computers, they know how to, program and all of this. But the jobs that are going to be available, most of those jobs are going to be jobs that are created by other organizations and companies that are really to our demise. So, and we see it now. We see it with Monsanto. We see it with all these corporations and companies, Elon Musk, and all this stuff we see going on. That's the future waves of the technologies, right? So we have to be very clear about what we are utilizing the technology to build for our people. Otherwise, we're going to see ourselves in those jobs, that are really doing the opposite effect of what we want, for us, by us.
Thank you for that, Queen Taese.
Artificial intelligence has its place, but it will never be greater than natural intelligence.
Ashe.
That can be understood right off the bat.
Ashe.
For us, this artificial intelligence allows us to speak to each other and to the entire community, which is phenomenal. But it's what we're saying naturally, how we're helping each other naturally, that's most important. And artificial intelligence will never be as intelligent as natural intelligence. Artificial intelligence will never be able to do anything without it first being introduced by a natural intelligence. That's a cosmic reality.
Yes.
We can never forget that. I think the calculator, all the wonderful things in artificial intelligence, they have their place. There's no question about that. And I just enjoy it. The idea of being able to have all my books and all of my writings on this that I will never lose. Because I worked with Chancellor Williams when he had lost his library in his life. He was devastated. I wondered if he had Kindle that was the books, and if he had some type of device, flash drive that could preserve his writings. It's phenomenal, but it's the writings that's important, not the technology. The technology exists for the natural intelligence. That's very important for us to understand. Artificial intelligence has its place, but it will never replace natural intelligence.
Indeed. Thank you for that, Dr. Kaba. All right. We are at the stage of questions. If you have a question, you don't have to speak it. You can put it in the comment section and we can say it for you. Or you could raise your hand if you would like to speak it verbally. So you go to the reaction area and then you press that hand and you could raise your hand and ask a question to Dr. Kaba or Queen Taese. Somebody with their hand raised. Tyler.
Hi, everyone. Greetings. Thank you. My name is Tyler Zawagi. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for sending the email blast because I'm like 5 o'clock. So sorry I was late. But Baba, I had a question for you, Baba Kaba. I just wanted to ask, you said that you had a curriculum on solar power. I did write down the book, Solar Power Demystified, but what curriculum can you kind of expound on that a little bit?
The curriculum that I've developed starts with going back into ancient Africa to show how our ancestors were aware of the power of the sun. And that is the Aten text. In my book, Spirituality Before Religion, I have a section talking about the Aten text and the importance of the sun to our ancestors. They realized that the sun was the source of all the energy. It was the source of all the food that grew. They understood that we came from the sun. And so I try to develop it to place the learner inside of the curriculum itself. I have various webinars that I've done on it. But the point of the curriculum is to look at not just the science of it, but to look at the creative arts, which includes the language arts, the creative arts, and the physical arts. Also, the physical sciences, what we call STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. How do we look at that? 93 million miles between the Earth and the sun. Well, that's mathematics. And so we start doing calculations. And then you have the actual science itself, which is, the study of the sun, astronomy, geology, and things like that. You have engineering, which basically, you have the technology, which basically is the technology of the pyramid buildings, of the astronomy. So we have the children do various things in that according to their maturity level, not according to their grades. Because as Queen Taese was saying earlier, it's not about grades. It's not about at the end of kindergarten, you should be able to read this book. That's not accurate. Africans taught according to a maturity belt. So that between kindergarten, what we consider kindergarten and second grade would be the time to acquire certain skills. Then you had the elementary level, which basically was from, let's say, the third grade, maybe the fourth grade to about the sixth grade. So we dealt with spiritual manifestations of growth. So you tailor your lessons according to the maturity belt that you're talking to. The earlier you go, the more motor skill, the more visual, the more perception, what they see, what they smell, what they taste, what they touch, what they think. Because no matter what anybody tell you, there's 6 senses. Thinking is a sense, not just seeing and hearing and feeling and touching and smelling and tasting. So that I touch on all the different subjects. And then you have the social side. Well, the other is engineering, which is the actual building of the pyramids, the tekanus or the obelisks or the buildings. The Dogon built their village according to the human body, where it was very interesting how they structured their village. And all the villages, if you look from the sky down, they all look like human beings, not so much in the physical shape, but the manifestations of where the head is, to the arm, to the torso, to the legs, to the feet. So it was obvious that they had a relationship with the outer world, looking at the inner world, as above, so below. And then from there, from STEM, you now go into the social sciences, which is geography, history, politics, economics, and social. So now you're dealing with the geography of the sun. You're dealing with the history of the sun, the politics or the governance of how the sun governs the earth, the seasons, governs the earth. Then you deal with the economics. Eco means environment. Like you have ecology is the study of the earth, of your environment. Economics is to know your environment. So in economics, you now study agriculture, going back to what Sister Queen Taese was talking about, in terms of growing your own food, in terms of how the sun relates to the various aspects of the earth, be it the water, the air, whatever it is. And then you have the social, which is the relationship between the human being and the sun. And that's when you get into melanin.
Thank you for that, Dr. Kaba. I'm going to go back and forth from verbal responses to our chat. So somebody in the chat said, greetings, Baba. What are your thoughts on the influx of government funding available for homeschooling families?
Get it. and send it to Queen Taese and Liberated Minds. Send it to all of the different schools and the homeschoolings. They're not doing it for us. They're doing it so that their children can stay away from us, but take advantage of their ignorance. Get every penny you can get and send it to those independent organizations that are attempting to homeschool the children, and use your money wisely. It's not how much they give you, it's how you use what they give you. It's like grandma, she used to feed the whole neighborhood. You talk about, Jesus feeding with the fish and the loaves. Our grandparents, particularly our grandma, used to feed everybody in the neighborhood with a couple potatoes or whatever it was to make it happen. Learn how to use money. Respect it. It doesn't take a lot, but it does take that you know where to put your money.
Thank you for that, Dr. Kaba. Mama Yata. Mama Yata, you there?
Okay, greetings. I apologize. Working with the children. Yes, I just wanted to say, first of all, that this It's a very dynamic platform, and I would have never dreamed of being on the platform with Queen Taese and Baba at the same time. And I just wanted to give my thanks and my gratitude, how special this is and how in alignment this is for all of us as Black Afrocentric community and village. And I'm just really happy to be here. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Mama Yats. Appreciate that.
Learning is about engagement at all times, you know. Play is important even for us as adults. To be able to enjoy and to laugh and smile connects the emotion to the information, right? And that creates a whole nother experience of just that love of learning that we talk about, right? So we want the learning experience to be as fun as possible. We know sometimes that, you know, it may be something that we don't want to do, even as adults, like our children, certain things they may not want to do. However, you know, the more we can give them engaging experiences where we're using all of our senses to experience that, you know, that base of that body of knowledge, then the memory is going to stick within us. It's going to become a part of us, right? So as creative as we can be, you know, whatever it is, you know, even just getting outside of the classroom. So if you're learning about, you know, certain sciences, as Baba was saying, get outside and experience it in real time, in real motion, and rather than just the textbooks or the worksheets. You know, we have to bring education to life. Even if your children are in public school, you know, some of the lessons that they're learning, how can you find time on the weekends or whenever you can get it in, visit some museums, you know, go different places and connect the information of what they're learning that is, or what they're learning that's right and exact, I should say, that that is to our ancestry, that is to, you know, the real world. So I think that's really important, embodying all of the senses. And yes, that's what play does.
Thank you for that. School of Sauce.
Peace to the room. Greetings to everyone. This has been a phenomenal build. Grateful to be here. Thank you all for opening this space, for giving the knowledge and your expertise as it pertains to homeschooling. My name is Sauce God. This is
Perp. I am Perp 30.
And we are the founders of the School of Sauce. We are a private online homeschool which teaches parents and children from the ages of 4 through 17. We teach them astronomy, biology, agriculture, divine mathematics, alchemy, melanin, and a list of other things. We just got our brick and mortar out here in Atlanta, Georgia, and we've been hearing so much about the liberated minds. You know, we are familiar with Baba. He is a dear associate friend of ours, and he's taught at the school. And we were just looking to see how we can get more involved. I see that you all have a expo coming up in July, and we wanted to know more about how we could get involved with the actual expo. If you was doing like vendors, or you was doing like having speakers at it. So just more information as it pertains to the expo and how we could potentially collaborate.
Absolutely. I first want to just send y'all some love and light and strength and just big y'all up for this work here, because I love it when I see us doing for us. It's very exciting to me. And so there's so many ways to get involved with the expo. And the expo really is, even though it's an event, you know, Liberated Minds is really about ongoing collective works, you know, working together. So it's kind of like that opportunity where we can come together, where we meet each other. And at the same time, we're building relationships with other like minds that are on this journey with us. So yes, there's many opportunities to speak, to vend, you know, to come and share great information with the people. It is for us, by us, unapologetically. It's very important that we keep it sacred so we can not just learn about ways of educating our children, but in addition, the healing that we have to do as a collective, where we are, you know, dealing with all of the curriculum trauma that we face, all of the curriculum trauma that has spilled into our relationships, that has spilled into our economics, that has spilled into all these different areas. So although we're talking about academics as well, we're also addressing all of those aspects. It is also a great way where we see a lot of independent creators, right? Because we have to have outlets where we can let people know about what we're doing. Some of you have curriculums, right? Some of you have schools, some of you have just all kind of resources for the African family. And so this is a place where we can come and share it with our community, and be able to get that support, get that love, and people can spend their money with you, circulate their dollars. We have over 40 workshops for adults, and we also have the Watoto Village is from ages 4 to 10, and then the Sankofa Scholars is ages 11 to 17. So while you are being educated, the children are also being educated. So when everybody comes together in the evening, everyone is talking about all of the greatness of what they learn, and it's all complementary. So Baba Kaba, he has been such a huge foundation of the Liberated Minds Expo. This is our 12th year. So you can go to the website, which is liberatedmindsexpo.com. The presenters are going to start going up on Monday, but there's also ways where you can volunteer. There's so many ways to get involved. So also I will put my email in the chat as well. And if any of you want to, connect and just share a little bit more about what you do. And I would just love that. That is what I love, when we can come together and really, I don't even want to say cross-pollinate. Let's just be on the journey together, because it takes that village, it takes the support, and I love to share information. So to be able to build.
Thank you for that, Queen Taese. I just found out about that, man. I'm so upset because I'm like, I want to go.
That's all right.
Next
we have
summer.
Stuff going all the time. Next year we'll still be rocking. So.
Indeed.
Yes.
But yeah, I looked it up. It looks amazing. If anybody's in the Atlanta area, I would definitely recommend you guys checking that out. And you've been doing it for a while. And I looked at the presenters that you have, and I'm like, how did you even connect with all these people? Like, it's just amazing. Like,
people
wow.
From over the years, and people are just like Baba Kaba Hiawatha. He's a veteran at this. I sat at his feet in 1996, 1997. I don't even know what year it was now. So to be here and be in this space with him sharing is, for me, is an honor, and it's the continuance of the work. And that's what we have to do. We have to give to those who are coming into the work, right, in this way of life and living. And then at the same time, we're passing it forward. We're holding the baton in both directions, right? Like, we're staying connected to the elders, to the ancestors. And at the same time, we're staying connected to the young people that are coming in and building up. So this is how it has to go. So I'm going to let's see here.
All right. So you're going to put that up while you're putting that up?
Yeah, I'm going to put that in. I'll put it in the so if they go to liberatedminds.com, that's what I'm going to put in here. There's a lot of information that you can get about a lot of our programmings. We have our Homeschooling University as well, which has over 54 African-centered courses. It is virtual. It's a virtual campus. It is designed for 3 generations, right? So it's to children, parents, and grandparents, because we have to constitute learning as a regular activity, not school, right? Not school, but just learning is an everyday experience that is going to enhance the whole family, strengthen the family, empower the family as a whole. So this is why we have the 3 generations, and it's beautiful to see. Some of the classes, there's one class that I remember they were doing a presentation at the end of the semester presentation, and you had the children, the parents, and the grandparents all in the same class. And they were sharing, doing a presentation together. So to see us, uniting through education, through our African-centered education, is so empowering. And what that means, for us, in terms of longevity and the sustenance, is everything, because everything is generational. Everybody talks about generational wealth as if it's just economics, but generational wealth is really the transmission of culture. It's the wealthiness of thought, of mind, of action, of deed, of how we function. Right, that maintains the economics, that maintains who we are, that maintains power. So we have to, look at it from that perspective. So,
well said.
So yeah.
Well said. Mama Alyssa has a question.
Greetings, everyone.
P3.
Yes, P3. Hey, Queen. I was really excited when I saw this come through at 6 a.m. on the email to see who was going to be on here. I've been waiting for this, and this has just been very uplifting and very educational. I really got a lot out of this, just to let you know. But real quick for Baba Kaba, to expound on my question about the available funding, the government funding that's becoming available to the homeschooling families. This is one thing that I have been researching and I'm working on with Queen Taese with the families on the campus. But one thing that I've been running into, I know that a lot of the families are a little hesitant to want to accept this when it comes to they're doing regulations with a lot of the states where they want to do like a homeschooling committee where they're coming in and want to do some type of standardized testing. So what are your thoughts on that, of how to combat that, to have families comfortable, or any strategies to be able to not even really get around that, but how to handle that situation?
Well, I don't know if you can ever go around that as it relates to receiving the funds, but I'll tell you one thing. If we educate our children the way in which I know that I have, these standardized tests is shallow compared to how deep and intelligent our children will be. When I was teaching in the Board of Ed, I was there in the Bronx for 31 years. And with the way in which I taught my children, first of all, standardized testing was something I taught them how to do. Standardized testing is a psychological process. For you to read something on one side of your desk and then to have to fill in a circle on another, that takes a certain strategy to be able to do that. And for what I used to do is I used to have a time where all of my tests were in standardized form. So they were practicing standardized testing all the time. My thing is, this educational system is shallow. And I'm saying that when we get our children to that level, when you think of Queen Taise's son going to aviation school at the age of 11, and when you see where he is now as a commercial pilot, when you look at all of our children who are doing so many great things, this standardized test is nothing. Yeah, come on in. You can test my children because my children are beyond that. So we teach them how to pass those tests so we can teach them what they need to do. I used to always tell the children, look, for instance, I'm thinking of a particular class when I taught social studies, because I've taught every grade, I've taught every subject. I used to tell the children in my social studies class, I say, look, give me 20 minutes to teach you what's going to be on the test. And then I'm going to spend the other 20 minutes telling you what you need to know as a young Black or Hispanic brother or sister. Can we make that deal? And they used to make the deal with me. 20 minutes, I'd give them the chapter summary. I'd give them things that were going to be on the test. And then I'd tell them who the real George Washington and Thomas Jefferson was. You see, play the game, family. I played a game. I played the game. I'm the spook who sat by the classroom door. I watched the game that they play. And of course, they're going to try to hook you into something like that. And I expect that. But you're going to pay me for playing the game. So my thing is, play the game, get your check, make sure you give the children what they need to pass that shallow. Really, the testing is really not very deep. Let me tell you, it's really not deep. They can pass that test, but you got to teach them test-taking skills. And once they get that down, then you teach them what they want to know. There were times when, they used to come in and investigate my class, trying to figure out how my children did so well. And, for me, it was cool, because they wanted to know how could children score the way my children scored. And the reason why wasn't nothing special, family. I just knew what to do. And that's why I'm here talking to you, so that you know what to do. Because that's where this is going to go. They're going to go into vouchers because they want to divide us, just like going back to what Queen Taese was saying about disconnecting. They want to disconnect the country. That's what they are. They are disconnectors. The one thing about Western civilization is that they are based on separation, not coming together. And so this is what they're going to do. And so while they're at it, go with it. Learn how to do it. Learn how to play the game. Go to people that know how to play the game. Go to people who have played the game. And then get the kind of check that you could support the liberated minds. You could support the independent Black schools, Source God, and all the other independent activities that are going on out there. And let them all come together as a group. And we start our own Board of Education.
Indeed. Thank you for that, Dr. Kaba. We have Love Frequency.
Good day, beloved and fabulous Queen T.
Greetings.
I apologize, beloved. For
Good.
mispronouncing your name. You're phenomenal. You're fabulous. Thank you for creating this beautiful gathering and for the wonderful brain food that you always give. Thank you to the dynamic and phenomenal Baba Dr. Kaba. You are incredible. We are grateful. Thank you for manifesting yourself here and for all the work that you have been doing. We are very grateful for you. We believe in you. And also, if I may quote you, it's not over until we win. Long live our beautiful African people. And I do have a question. Is there a way that I could possibly send you a copy of my book, Dr. Kaba, because I mentioned you in one of my books titled I Am Beautiful? That would be an honor. Thank you, Asante.
Can I just say something really quick
Sure.
in between that? Sister Head Haru, you need to share, please do share, because I think your story is very inspiring. What you've done as an author, but also with your children, because I think that is a very empowering story. If you may briefly about, the books and the children in which you've all produced.
Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Well, I'm an author and I started writing because of the lack of representations that I've seen because I have a background in education as well. So when I went to school and as a teacher myself, I didn't see a lot of books that represented us. And the little bit of books that I've seen is more like enslavement and were written by people other than us. So when my children were toddlers, I really wanted them to know that they're beautiful, that they're phenomenal, that they're fabulous, that they could do whatever they want to do, that they're going to make this world a better place. So I started writing. Of course, I write when I'm inspired. I don't just write for the sake of writing. So I wanted to do something that is going to empower us as a people and move us forward. So that's why I started writing for my children so that they can know that they are amazing and phenomenal, and for all of our children so that they too know that they are phenomenal and incredible and beautiful and are able to manifest their gifts, because everybody comes here with their own gifts. And if you don't share and nurture the gifts of our children, then it's kind of a disadvantage because someone out there is looking for those gifts and talents that our children have. So it's important to raise our children correctly, like Queen said, also to nurture our children and help them forward with recognize their talents and their gifts so that we can move them forward as well. So I've written several books. They're inspirational books so that every time we turn the page, they're very simple. Sometimes people think, oh, they're just children's books. They're inspirational books because every time that you turn the page, you're going to be looking at yourself at your best, reminding you of who you are so that you could go forward. You are stardust. Every atom in this universe is in you. Every single atom is present in you. You are, as an African being, you are complete. You are complete and you have everything that you need. And like Queen Taese mentioned, our culture is our cure, is our remedy, is our key, is what's going to get us back into thriving. I like to talk too much, so I'm just going to stop there. I really appreciate the opportunities and thank you so much. You are beautiful.
My sister, let me give you my email. My email is kamene777@aol.com. KAMENE 777@aol.com. I'm going to put this in the chat so that you can get it.
Thank you, beloved Baba Kaba.
Yes,
I am
no doubt.
grateful. I believe in you. Thank you so much.
Oh, and my sister, I believe in you. Congratulations on all your great work. And, vibrate on what you say about writing, because I often tell people I don't write my books because I'm a writer. I write because I have something to say. And I feel you when you say that. Some people write as a career, but some people write because they just got something that they want to say to people. So keep doing what you're doing, my sister.
Thank you. Can you put your book on the on the chat for those of us that are interested in getting a copy? Is it on Amazon?
Yes, well, it's on Amazon, but you can get it through me, which is what I recommend because I can sign it if you'd like to. But if you go to my website, you see I put the website up there, brother man, in the chat to get more of my information on my educational work. You can get it in the link in my bio at Kaba Kamene, or you can get it at my website, www.kabakamene.com.
Oh, yes, Dr. Kaba, we're definitely going to put that link to your book. But
I have 5 books. In fact, I wrote Shabaka Stone, which is a book on African astronomy, but I was so impacted by it as a young man, I decided I wanted to write another book, Shabaka Stone for Children. So I wrote a book for children dealing with Shabaka Stone and understanding, just like when Sister Love Frequency said that we are stardust, that's exactly what I'm trying to tell folks. It's called an African star story. It's Shabaka Stone, which is a story of a theory on how we came into existence as a people.
I definitely need me a signed copy of the books as well. I got the Amazon copies, but I gotta get a signed copy. I was interested in Miss Love too as well. Is your book on Amazon? All right. We have Empress.
Can I say one quick thing? No, I can jump it in, but Baba Kaba, if you can please tell them about your webinars, because we use those a lot with our homeschooling.
Yes. Okay.
And that's a must.
Yes. You know, the great scholar, educational psychiatrist, brother named Dr. Wade Nobles in California, he once told us that there's a difference between intent and content. Intent is methodology. It's how you teach. And content is what you teach. And so up on my Instagram, in my bio, and on my website, I have webinars, quick webinars, about a half an hour. And what they are is teaching methodology. I have a series on the human brain and learning as it relates to the human brain, Africanizing it, to understand exactly how the brain functions. I've got webinars on multiple intelligences, ways of learning, ways of teaching. I started my second set of series, starting off with the art of study, because we're always telling people, go home and study, but we never really taught people how to study. And so what I've done through my career is I taught my children how to study. And so I've got a 13-part series on the art of study on my webinar series. Webinars, quick webinars are teaching methodologies. Now I've got webinars. Webinars teach you a number of different, I just put a webinar up on the Moors. I've got some on the Moors. I've got some on a number of different subjects. That's content. That's what to teach. The webinars is how to teach it. And so the webinars are up on my Instagram page, the link in my bio, and they're also on my website. When you go in, you put your email in. Gumroads will then, because that's my distribution center, that then starts the process. When you go to my website and you join my website, you'll get a free e-course, 6-day e-course, and a 44-page study guide. Because Dr. Clark used to tell me, you may not get to your destination, but if you leave the proper roadmap, those that come behind you will pick it up and keep the journey going.
Yes.
And that study guide is my roadmap. Where am I directing this? 44 pages. It has lists of books. It gives you themes, because again, sometimes we study our history like in books, but what I do is I break it down into themes. For instance, the origin of life in Africa. How did that come into existence? Instead of just giving you a whole list of books, what I do is I break it down into maybe 20 different themes with the book pages to study that promote and support the theme that I'm trying to develop. African presence in Asia, African presence in America, African presence in Europe. You break it down so that the community can understand. This is what I studied, how to develop. So that study guide is free. To me, it's the most important thing I have written. That's why it's free. Because sometimes the most important things in life are free. And it's something I wanted our community to have, and I did not want money to stop them from being able to get it. So you go to my website, free e-course, free study guide. The e-course is on my book, Spirituality Before Religions. Because we got to break out of this concept of looking outside of yourself. You are the creator having a human experience.
Thank you for that, Dr. Kaba. I would implore everybody to definitely get a copy of Dr. Kaba's books and to support the work that he is doing. And of course, Queen Taese as well. We have Empress with a question.
Mr. G, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Please, can you give us a little bit of your background and what you do, why you brought this great program into existence?
Oh man, honored. So I am a health and PE background teacher, so it brought, some good feelings to my heart when you're talking about PE today. So with me, my background, I come from Haiti. I was born in Haiti, actually. Came here when I was 5. Transitioned into, the culture, speaking the language and everything. And I didn't really want to be an educator. I actually wanted to study physical therapy because I had somebody in my neighborhood that was doing really well. He had a nice car and he was doing physical therapy. And I was like, I want to do that. So I get into I get into that whole mind state and I go to college and they changed physical therapy from a bachelor's degree to a master's. So I had to figure out something for my bachelor's. So I'm like, you know what? PE and health is kind of similar. So let me do that. And then I can pursue, my master's in physical therapy and become a physical therapist. So, as you all know, like when you're becoming an educator, you have to student teach and you got to go into these schools and observe and to do different things. And what I started realizing was there was a pattern. Like I would go to these schools and some of the Black children were saying like, wow, you're the first Black teacher that we've ever had or we've ever seen. And I don't know if it was the universe communicating with me, but it just happened so frequently. Every school I was going to, kids were like, I was either their first or their second, or, we were vibing a little bit differently than what they were used to in the classroom. So I figured that was the universe calling me to education. So I actually started teaching in the South Bronx my first few years. And, that kind of led me towards the path of teaching. As far as what I'm doing with MasterMine, my platform, for those that don't know, we promote Black excellence. And I think you have to see it to believe it. In the classroom, like when we're talking about like goal setting in my classroom, some of my students were like, well, I don't really know a doctor like in my community. Nobody has even graduated college in my family. Like I want to be a doctor, but I just don't know. So what I realized was that, our children have to see it to believe it. And sometimes we got to see it to believe it. And Black excellence is something that we don't really see. And sometimes we fall victim to the narrative of what we are according to the media and, what white supremacy says we are. So some of us really believe that. So one of the things I wanted to do, especially during the pandemic, where everybody was kind of grieving and not feeling great, was to create a platform where we'd be able to promote Black excellence and the best of our culture and, create something different than what we're normally used to. And I think that when we see it, we believe it, and we have in our heads that we can emulate it. And also when we share our stories, some of us that are going through these same things, dealing with the school system, I've dealt with a lot of racism. We've talked about it many times on the program, and people have shared as well how to navigate through some of these things. Because when we are, excellent in what we do, there's a lot of haters. There's a lot of experiences that we can learn from and help each other from. So that's another purpose of the platform. So I know that was long-winded, so hopefully that answered your question, Dr. Kaba.
Yeah, brother. Congratulations, brother. Congratulations on all your great work, brother. And thank you for doing what you do. And, I just appreciate your generation now moving up and doing what you have to do. And you're doing it in a way that extends for the work that all those that came before us did it a certain way. They did it there during their time, and now you're doing it in your time. Congratulations, brother, man. And I respect you and I honor you and your family and everything that you represent. And to everybody that is on this chat, I just want to let you know one thing. We are going to make it to the promised land. We have some things we have to do, family. We can see we got some difficult days ahead. We've had some difficult days in the past, but if our ancestors could do it back then, we certainly can do this now. And my sister, Queen Taese, just congratulations on all your continued resilience in educating our children. I'm just so honored to be here and to share this information. And for everybody that is on this chat, when you mature, there's something you come to realize. The most precious thing you have is time. So I want to thank you for spending your time with us, believing that it was that valuable that you would give us your most precious gift, which is your time.
Ashe. Yeah. This has truly been an honor, to be here with everyone. And it's very inspiring and uplifting. As we know, this work takes a lot of energy. And, when we can come forward and share in this type of a manner and this space, it's so rejuvenating. It's just more fuel, to keep going forward. And really, we know, our culture is our cure. We have everything we need. And the space that you've created here is, I can tell, a very sacred space. And the energy here is just, it feels right. It feels right. So I just want to encourage you, to keep doing what you're doing. I'm happy to be a part of this. Baba Kaba, you already know my sentiments, in terms of, all that you've given me and continue to give me and breathing life into me over all of these years. And so I just want to thank everybody for being here. I want to encourage you all to join the Liberated Minds family. Whether you homeschool or not, it's really the mindset that is the homeschooling. It starts right there. So to please go to liberatedminds.com. I think Mama Major, my operations director, I see her in the chat, so she's, giving some of the information out. But we do have, a lot of opportunities to train. We have I notice you may hear us saying P3 or P3 in the chat. That's the Powerful, Proficient, Professional Homeschool Educator certification. Those that we have hundreds of alumni that are, training themselves up, to take leadership, to take a leadership role in their children's education, regardless if you're, so-called homeschooling. And just know that you can do it. It doesn't have to be what you think it is, where you have to quit your job, to do it. But you can, there's all types of co-ops and collectives and collaboratives and ways that we can do it in the village style, where we work together to get it done. So it's really about the goal that you set and moving in that direction. We also have like I said, the expo coming up, which is a great resource and an opportunity for us to really touch down and get some real work done on the mental, physical, and spiritual level. That's happening July 21st to the 23rd. First time back in person in 3 years. So I'm super excited about that. And those of you who want to know more about the opportunities, creating the opportunities, we also have the Opportunity Accelerator course coming up, and that starts on June 6th. And so that is the opportunity where we do real life projects. I work with you to really be able to bring some of your thoughts and ideas into fruition. And most of it parallels, it's about your children, but a lot of it parallels also with you as a parent or grandparent or an educator. So the information really is synonymous and can be used for, for so many things. So I just appreciate you. Oh, and I want to say last, Homeschool University. I don't want to forget that, because that is my best, because I get to see all the children, which is my first love and passion. The Homeschool University.com. There's an opportunity to just bring your whole family into the learning experience, through that medium. And so many of us have come together and bonded. We have students and families from all over the US, even from other countries. We have educators from throughout the African diaspora as well. So it's just really I can't even put words to it. A lot of our family is here in the house tonight. And so just want to give gratitude for your works. Let's continue to stay connected. And if nothing else, go on the website and you go liberatedminds.com and join the email list, and you will get updates on whatever is going on. So Madasi, for this opportunity.
Indeed, I appreciate everybody for coming on, sharing your Saturday with us. Definitely, send us an email if you want to get communication on our future programs. It's mrg.mastermind@gmail.com. I think I sent it on the chat. And, check out our YouTube channel. We're doing the work, trying to promote the best of our culture, to negate some of these things that get said about who we are and the work that we're doing. And I definitely want to shout out Dr. Kaba and Queen Taese for coming through. Queen Taese actually told me she canceled her flight today. I was like, whoa, like that's crazy. Oh
I
my
said it was
gosh.
my commitment to be here. So I was like, nah, I got to pass on that one.
Man, and this is the stuff that I appreciate. Dr. Kaba has been an excellent mentor. Whenever I hit him up, he's there, he answers, hits me back. And I think this is the things that we in the community need, like trying to build a platform and having people support it. And, the mentors in the community doing their work. Dr. Kaba is accessible in the community. And I think when you got people doing work like that, we have to support them. So definitely support Queen Taese, support Dr. Kaba, get his books, and join his email list as well so you can get all the information. And any last words, Dr. Kaba, before we close out?
Brothers, and sisters, I want us to know, you just keep on keeping on. It ain't over till we win. Solar power is the future wealth of the planet. Teach the children. C'est passé.
Appreciate you, Dr. Kaba. Kaba, I owe you lunch. I owe you some stuff. So we'll definitely get together. Queen Taese, hopefully next year I could catch everything live in Atlanta. And I'm excited about the future work. So definitely everyone, we're sharing emails and everything. Appreciate people coming on. We try to do this platform once a month. So join us again at the end of next month for another one. And thank you for everybody coming through. And then, of course, remember, your mind is the most powerful tool in the universe. Therefore, if you can think it, you can do it. If you believe in it, you can be it. And if you fight for it, you can have it. The world is yours. This has been your host, Mr. G, and I will see you next time on Mastermind.
So every day I'm going hard. I'm talking business, bank accounts, and credit cards. And somehow we defeat the odds and making sure that no one's starving.